Hi everybody, sorry I'm a little late with these tonight. Got caught up in meetings, but please do know that I usually try to post them earlier, but sometimes you gotta check them a little bit later. The homework in math doesn't usually take you very long, so I won't keep you up all night, but it's fine to do it like right before or after dinner. Even in the morning, you probably have enough time, but don't wait for the morning unless I haven't posted it. Okay, so here's your do now. Pause it, give it a try, and watch after to see how I did it. These ones should be super easy, so you should be done. This is going to be 14, this is going to be 32, and this is going to be 7. I'm going to come back to these, so don't turn them too far away. Now remember, when you're doing these, you could print the notes in a couple of ways. I posted two things. I posted the full PDF of the full page PowerPoints, and I posted the PDF of the smaller PowerPoints. So if you like larger font, feel free to print out all 7 pages. If you don't mind smaller font and a little box to write in, then you can go ahead and print out the larger, or you can print out the handout. You don't have to print. You could just be writing this in your notebook, but the printing is there as an option for you. Just make sure those notes get glued, taped, stapled, put into your notebook, or 3-hole punched and put into your binder. Whatever your preference is. You don't have to print, but you can. You have several options. Okay, multiplying fractions. So the first thing we're going to do here is 15 times 1/3. Well, that means 1/3 of 15. So 15 times 1/3, 1/3 of 15 is just 5. You might already know that. There's 2 ways to do this one. I could put this 15 over 1 and do 15 times 1 is 15, 1 times 3 is 3, and then we can divide both the top and bottom by 3 to get 5 over 1, which is just 5. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it would be to cancel out factors before we begin. We know that since we'll be multiplying these things anyway, this is basically just a fancy way. I'm going to use some properties of math here. This is basically saying 15 times 1 over 1 times 3. Now, using the commutative property of multiplication, I can swap the multiplication. 15 times 1 over 3 times 1, which is basically 15 over 3 times 1 over 1. So just 15 over 3. You don't have to do this every time. This is like a big old concept of why this works. Okay? Because of this big tricky math that I just did, you can over here divide this by 3 and this by 3 and get 5 and 1. So now we've got 5 times 1 over 1 times 1, which is just 5 over 1. Which is 5. You don't have to do this every single time. I sure am not going to. Okay, here we go. I'm going to look for common factors in its own fraction, nothing, nothing, and diagonally based on that process we just looked at, nothing, nothing. So 2 times 4 is 8, 3 times 5 is 15. With multiplication, we're multiplying both sides because it's basically just making one big old fraction right here. Okay, just like that. So you're multiplying the tops and bottoms. Here, when I'm looking at it, I don't see any common factors in their own fractions, but if I look diagonally, if I did that whole combining and reversing, then I could cancel out common factors. So diagonally, I'm going to divide both of these by 4. And diagonally, I'm going to divide both of these by 3. Remember, I could have put them together and swapped them because of the commutative property, but since we already know we can do that, we don't have to. We can save time. So this is going to be a 1, this is going to be a 3 times, this one's going to be a 1, and this one's going to be a 2. That might be easier for you than crossing things out. Remember, when you cross things out, sometimes it's hard and you lose pieces. So don't forget things. Writing the division and just doing it might help. 1/6. There you go. Now, I could have also gotten the same answer by doing 12 over 72 and then dividing and dividing and dividing, and then eventually you would get 1/6. So you're not wrong if you don't cancel factors. You're just doing harder math. Mixed numbers. Now, mixed numbers are more difficult than adding and subtracting mixed numbers because you really have to combine them. So when you're multiplying mixed numbers, you need to turn them into improper fractions. And I'm just going to use the word common fractions because that's a more friendly term, right? Improper just sounds so yucky, like we shouldn't be doing that. These are common fractions. That's another math term for the same thing. To convert to a common fraction, I multiply this number times the denominator, and then I add. 3 times 7 is 21. You could even write that. 3 times 7 is 21. Plus 3 is 25 sevenths. The denominator stays the same. That doesn't change. Times 20. 4 times 5 is 20. Plus 1 is 21 fifths. Look at this. I have factors, diagonal factors here. So I'm going to divide this by 5 and this by 5. And I'm going to need to divide this by 3 and this by 3. So I have 5 over, oh, I'm sorry. I'm doing the math already in my head. Geez, okay, there we go. 7, 7, 7, 7. Perfect. 5 over 1 times 3 over 1 is 15. A really easy problem when you put it all together. Same thing here. 2 times 6 plus 1 is 13 sixths times 3 times 3 plus 2, 9 plus 2 is 11 over 3. There are no common factors on top of each other, and there are no common factors diagonally, so you just have to multiply across. 13 times 11, don't be afraid to do out the math. Whoops, 1, 0, what am I doing here? 3, 1, so 143. 143 over 18. And we're just going to leave it as one big old common fraction because it's nicer in algebra anyway. Dividing fractions, super easy when you realize what you're talking about. 20 divided by 4, you all know, is 5. Now let's go back here to our do now here, right? 21 divided by 3, 7. 20 divided by 4 is 5. Oh, my phone is ringing. Okay. Now, if we go back and looked at this first example we did, 15 times 1/3 is the same thing really as saying 15 divided by 3. So really what you did here is you took this division and you turned it into multiplying a fraction. We're going to do the same thing here. 20 times 1/4. Same thing. So what you're doing when you're dividing fractions, you're multiplying by a reciprocal, which is just the fancy word for a flipped fraction. Just flip it around. There we go. Oh man. Now 20 divided by 1/4. Well, division, remember, don't start by multiplying that and getting 5, right? We're multiplying by a reciprocal. So 20 divided by 1/4 is really 20 times, flip it over, 4, which is 80. Done. What do I have for you left? Almost done. 2 more slides. Don't start looking for common factors diagonally here. Remember, this is division. Division, it is almost multiplying. We're almost there, but it's not quite. So what you're going to want to do first is when you see a division sign, flip the second one, right? We're multiplying by that reciprocal because it's the same thing. 4 fifths times 10 over 3. Now we have some really nice diagonal factors here. So divide both of these by 5. 4 over 1 times 2 over 3, 8 over 3. Leave it as our common factor. Almost done. Same thing. Turn this into our multiplication and swap these. Don't be afraid to circle and write those arrows because you know that you've got this brain in your hand that's going to remember it later. Almost the same problem here. Look. Oh my goodness. Divide by 5. Divide by 5. 3 over 1 times 3 over 4 is 9/4. Okay, easy does it. Almost done. One last problem. Dividing mixed numbers. Again, just like with multiplying mixed numbers, we're going to turn it into a common fraction first. 4 times 8 plus 3, 32 plus 3 is 35/8. I'm not going to turn it into a multiplication problem yet. That's complicated and not good. 3 times 4 is 12 plus 1 is 13/4. Now that we have one solid fraction on both sides, flip it. 35/8 times 4 over 13. Okay, now again, you could go ahead and multiply 35 times 4 and 8 times 13, but why would you when you have common factors? Divide by 4, divide by 4. 35 over 2 times 1 over 13. That's 35 over 26. Leave it as a nice common fraction. There's your homework. To make sure you have these notes, I'm going to post 4 links for you on our Khan Academy list. Remember that you should be going in and ranking your understanding of each one or how you feel about it, reflecting on it, and clicking submit at the end. There were many problems that you might not have gotten to today from adding and subtracting fractions. If you have more time, I'm asking you to do 30 minutes of math. If you have more time after you've done those 4, then please do go back and try them. We are taking a quiz Friday, so you need to be really good on fractions by then. So make sure you're making the time to practice and asking me and Mr. Geckel your questions. Okay, guys, see you tomorrow.